I'm gonna run through some of my hot takes. They might not be that hot, to be honest, but this is just another way of discussing today's games too. Firstly, I think Cade is gonna be an all-star this season. It's a relatively weak Eastern Conference, so I think the Pistons have a real shot at making the play-in. And I thought they dominated the Pacers for most of this game. But due to their shot profile being so mid-range heavy, since half of their roster aren't consistent outside shooters, they could never really establish a large enough lead, while the Pacers shoot a lot of threes and more importantly get to the line. But either way, I was really impressed by the Pistons. They were locked in defensively and rotated well, probably because they don't have two centers out there anymore. And offensively, they pretty much ran everything through Cade, screening for him to get open off the ball, just to get another screen on the ball or an isolation, which he handled well, and he's very patient for a player of his age. Sometimes I think he can be a little bit too slow and one-paced, but oftentimes it doesn't matter because he can still make passes out of pretty much any situation because of his height. It's just sometimes he gets jammed and goes for these tough contested mid-ranges. But I think he's at his best when he's driving aggressively, and given the Pistons have showed up some legitimate shooters, it makes his job a lot more easy. But of course that also makes Ivy's role a bit more questionable and curious, as he was often benched for Hardaway or Beasley due to their shooting. And while Ivy was still used as a screener a bit, he doesn't really have that much role on the court when Cade is there. Of course he is still important because he can have these quick bursts of speed and attack the rim, and he's still quite good at cutting at the 3-point line when defenses have stopped paying attention to him. But similar to Cade, he can be a bit one-paced too, but this time he's always going fast and sometimes out of control. But I still think he's, well, it's not like they're going to trade him early in the season, I don't think. So hopefully JB Bickerstaff will give him more opportunity in the second unit, because I don't think he's ideal next to Cade when you want maximum spacing. But in saying that, they're gonna have to reintroduce Asad Thompson too, so we'll see how it all works out. But I think for the Pacers, I guess my hot take for them would be that they are being pretty slept on as a playoff team in the East. I think people forget just how competitive they were last playoffs against the Celtics. There was a few games that could have gone either way, and a few controversial calls towards the end of those games. But they just have great depth and balance with Neem Smith and Nemhard surrounding Halliburton, and they're quite good at getting in the passing lanes, especially Neem Smith, while Nemhard is just a master navigating screens. But we'll move on to my next hot take, which is that the Nets are going to be much more competitive than pundits have been predicting. A lot of people have been thinking that the Nets are going to be historically bad and outright the worst team in the East. And while they definitely could tank at the end of the season, right now they're actually a good watch. Jordi Fernandez has decided to start Ben Simmons at the 5 and switch everything, which actually worked to great effect in my opinion. Of course there were some mismatches like Dennis Schroeder and Jalen Johnson, but it does mean that Ben Simmons is often guarding the perimeter player, which is better than guarding a center for him, and can get off the ball in passing lanes. But I was more impressed by what I saw offensively. Given Ben Simmons is now the 5, he is able to be an offensive hub similar to Draymond or even Domantas Sabonis. Like, he was legitimately running handoffs, re-screening, and he's just able to keep the ball moving, which a lot of bad teams don't do. Like Jordan Ball, and we saw Cam Thomas, obviously, is just shot chucking. And Ben is also quite useful in transition, obviously. They were often looking for him, and he is one of the best transition players in the league, at least at finding shooters. He could have definitely been more aggressive when guarded by Capella, who, by the way, if the Hawks are going to close Onyeka Okongwu, I'm not sure why they don't just start Onyeka and Jalen Johnson in the front court. And that's my other hot take, that Jalen Johnson becomes a smoky all-star contender that will help the Hawks get back to a top 20 to 15 defense, as they have some better defensive pieces this year with Dyson Daniels' activity and Richard Sher, who I'm not sure how much on-ball opportunity he'll get with the Hawks, as they run such a heliocentric offense through Trae Young. But if Jalen Johnson doesn't make the All-Star, he should definitely do the dunk contest, as we saw in that game against the Nets. A few other random Nets thoughts, like Claxton didn't get much opportunity, which was surprising given the Nets made such an investment into him this off-season. I still think he's an underrated offensive player. He's good in the short roll, passing or scoring, and the short few times Ben and Claxton did share the floor, they were able to run a few back screens for lobs over the top that worked to great effect since the floor was spaced out in the corners, so the defenders couldn't just hump over from the corner. And I'm also excited to see how Noah Clowney grows throughout the season, because if he shoots well enough, he's gonna have opportunity to share the floor with Simmons or Claxton's, or at times both of them. There was once a lineup with Simmons, Claxton, and Clowney. They were trying a lot of different things, because Jordi Fernandez even put out a lineup of no center, no Simmons, which obviously wasn't good rebounding wise, but and was exposed a few times by the Hawks in cross matches in transition, which, by the way, the Nets are a terrible defensive transition team at the moment. And a few times those lineups were also just targeted by the Hawks, but they weren't punished too much overall. But yeah, that's my hot take for the Nets, that they're actually going to be a good watch and very competitive, unlike what everyone was saying at the start of this season. And also that Zion Williams is going to be a serious role player for them, and potentially a most improved or recruit of the year candidate after being just kind of chucked out by the Grizzlies. My other hot take is that Evan Mobley will win Defensive Player of the Year. I only caught a little bit of that Raptors game, but when he was on Scotty Barnes, he was just shutting him down. And he's one of the most versatile and switchable defenders in the league. Elsewhere, I actually agree with the Orlando Magic's decision not to go star hunting for a dominant guard, as I think Point Paolo as a point forward is just such a real thing that with the added shooting, he and the rest of the team is going to be very difficult to beat night to night. I think they're going to win at least 50 games this season. Also, I think the Warriors should just start Melton for spacing reasons. I understand Steve Kerr wants to start all of those guys because Trey wants a center next to him so he can roam free defensively, while both Wiggins and Kuminga want to start. But I think they should just move Kuminga to the second unit and allow him to have more freedom there, or just make him the pseudo center on offense as a roller. But no matter, I just think they should start Melton, otherwise they have to run virtually all of their perimeter actions through Curry, and it just becomes too predictable for defenses, especially with Wiggins, Kuminga, and Dre clogging up the paint. looking for post-ups and the like. Final few hot takes is that the Hornets should scrap their drop defense because their guards are just so bad at navigating screens between LaMelo and Trey Mann. Also, if I'm the Rockets, there's no rush now, but well, especially with Şengün and Jalen Green's extensions, but I think they should go star hunting like was rumored and try and make a big splash for a superstar level of player, as I don't think this team quite gels yet. There's a lot of young talent, but I'm not sure they can progress up the standings without a bona fide number one option. Final random hot take is that Şengün is actually more similar to Jokic on defense than he is on offense, as Şengün does so many little tricks like pulling out the chair in the post and just many plays where he's able to be in between the ball handler and the roller very effectively that Jokic does well too. And both of them just end up somehow, despite their physical disposition of being very slow and not that enthusiastic on defense, just end up being decent defenders somehow. This one is hardly a hot take, but James Harden looks like he's going to be an all-star again this season, with that, almost beating the Phoenix Suns in overtime.